Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to another edition of Remixing Politics and Culture with me, your host Pam. I'm a public relations and marketing professional that happens to have a passion for social justice, voter advocacy, and culture. And tonight I have a special show for you. I have the ex-MAGA granny, Pam Hemphill, who has made headlines recently for refusing the Trump pardon that he gave to all of the defendants in the January 6th insurrection. Pam Hemphill's charges were not for violence, rather, hers were for trespassing. Nevertheless, she served time in prison and was released on parole in Boise, Idaho. Professionally, Pam is a retired counselor in substance abuse for some 28 years. And she is a staunch advocate for saving our democracy. And I'm forever amazed at her all the time. Welcome back to the show, Pam. This is your third time being on the show. Thank you so much for agreeing to come.
Oh, well, thank you, Pam. I enjoy you so much.
Thank you so much. And next up, we have the Reverend Kendall McBroom. He currently serves as Director of Civil and Human Rights at the General Board of Church and Society. He is responsible for managing and developing the agency's legislative and policy advocacy and support of civil and human rights. Before his current position, Kendall served as the senior pastor of Turner's Chapel African Methodist Episcopal Church in High Point, North Carolina, and he is an ordained itinerant elder in the AME Church. Let me tell you guys something. Kendall and I were in the North Carolina Institute for Political Leadership together, and he gave a powerful sermon on January 20th, celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Several standing ovations and all that. So I have the show. So Kendall, welcome to the show for your first time, not your last time. Thank you so much.
Pam. It's great. I'm grateful to be here. Grateful to be with both Pams on this evening.
All right. So we've got a few people saying hello. Hello, Brian. Hello, Renee. All right. So, Kendall, I don't think I told you that in the show there's like audience participation throughout the show, which is a good thing. We try to get everybody to participate. Hey, Linda Hayes, that's my cousin. All right. So, Pam, we're going to start our conversation off with you about your journey in MAGA. After you even voted for Obama previously. So you know what, Pam, even though you said you vote mostly Republican in the past or what have you, you're really kind of independent.
Yeah. You know, a lot of us just rely on our family if we're not involved in politics, because we trust our family and our close friends. And that's all I was doing back then, except for when it come to Obama, I said, no, I didn't tell him though. But, yeah.
Okay. So listen, tell us about the price that you've paid being in what you call the cult of MAGA.
Where do I start? When I was following them, the gaslighting, you got to keep in mind, you're fed so much disinformation. You don't know about disinformation. Mm-hmm. All you're hearing is that the Democrats want to turn this into a communist nation. That's all you're hearing. Right. And you're not schooled in politics. My background, I've been working with heroin addicts and alcoholics, trying to save them from addiction. So I'm not even knowing what's going on. So you're vulnerable. Like a lot of us were vulnerable to listen. You lose your critical thinking because of the gaslighting, all the cult tactics that they use, Don't be listening to that channel. Don't be reading that book. They don't know what they're talking about. So, it's just like listening to you right now.
Right.
I'm listening to you. I'm not going back and fact checking what you're sharing with me. Though. See, that was my mistake.
That very good point. Very good point. So, Pam, what you had mentioned before on the show that there were times where you kind of felt like some of the information wasn't quite right, but you kind of went along with it. You get swept up in the whole vibe of everything. Tell us about that.
Well, that's exactly what happens. You love this country. You're hearing from them. You know, that's why we have divorce court, because there's two sides to every story.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's just what happens. You don't do your own fact checking. You're listening to one party. And I was kind of raised that Democrats um, didn't really care that much. So you're kind of about the country. So you're kind of programmed already growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't know if I answered that question very well, but
Yeah. So, Reverend Kendall, from your lens as a theologian and what have you, and a person that's very active in protecting civil and human rights, what do you think MAGA is really all about? How it kind of transformed from the Republican Party and it just became sort of like a movement of sorts. What are your tell us what you think of what the MAGA movement is really all about?
Yeah, I thank Pam for sharing her insights and her background and her um experience, I would say, with MAGA in this moment. Like I really do hear that and I appreciate that. I think the MAGA moment, and I'm calling it a moment, I'm calling the MAGA moment that intentionally because this has shown up in multiple elections, multiple iterations of the American dream, multiple iterations of American political history. I think that the end goal ultimately of the MAGA moment and the MAGA cult is to continuously not only pit communities against each other and make it out as though there's a bad person in minorities or a bad person in the poor or a bad person in women, but I think that it is really to destroy democracy. I think it is to destroy the hope of democracy. It is to destroy the goal and the desire for the majority of Americans to experience democracy and really state its claim that this is a white man's nation. And I say that specifically a white man's nation, not a white woman's nation, but a white man's nation. Um,
Mm-hmm.
this is the white man's ideology. This is, I just remember I'm reflecting back now how we used to sing in school, like this land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Islands.
Uh-huh.
And we sung it with joy. I mean, we're second graders, third graders, second graders, and we're singing with pure joy.
Mm-hmm.
Failing to at times realize that that was not the case, and that wasn't the case for our parents. That wasn't the case for our grandparents, our great grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really believe that this moment and this attempt at a movement that has generated some voice, has generated some traction, is essentially about maintaining power and about maintaining authority, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
over particular parts of the population.
Okay. So, Pam, now that you're out, you've been out of the cult for a while now. You to your I know for a fact that you've received threats, you've been doxxed, and all types of things, and yet you do not you still are not quiet. I got a text from her a few weeks ago, and I'm like, gosh, Pam, people are just so mean or whatever. And you said, I can't stop because I'm fighting for democracy. Tell do you feel like this is sort of like your redemption or something type thing that you're doing?
Well, yeah, well, I totally agree with what he just shared. They want it to be an all white Christian nation. But see, you're attracted to the movement. I forgot to mention this because
Mhm,
they do carry a Bible, because they do talk about God. And
mhm,
I've been in recovery now and I break my anonymity for 45 years. So I work 12 steps that are all oriented around God, God of my own understanding. And I have to live a life where, I turn my will and my life over to carry God on a daily basis. And
mhm,
then one of the steps is when you're wrong, promptly admit it. But
mm,
Mega doesn't know how to do that. But yes, it's really sad, that I was involved in that because you're
mhm,
fooled. You don't see the racism. You
mhm,
don't see what they're doing because they hide it. They're real good at it. I really was kind of one that they didn't really bring in their circle because I would question things. It's like,
mhm.
what about the election? Where's the proof that the election was stolen?
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah. So, yeah. So I think, I think that what we're seeing today, especially, is like an all-out attack of. He did say one thing I can say about Trump. Getting back to the current politics of today, he keeps a promise. He keeps a promise. Unfortunately, he has bad promises.
Mhm.
And so he said that he would be a dictator on day one. And I'll be dog if it doesn't seem like he's trying to do just totally change America with the stroke of his pen. Kendall, what does that, from a biblical standpoint, what does that kind of remind you of? Can you give us some examples of what's happened in our past? And
Yeah, no, that makes, I mean, it lines up with so much of religious history. And I mean, while I am and have, you know, I am a Christian, I'm definitely a studier or researcher, I would say, of the religious tradition broadly. So we're talking Christianity, but we're also talking the various religious traditions in
mhm,
the world. And particularly out of the Judeo-Christian faith,
mhm,
um, there was a point in time when Pharaoh for the ancient Israelites was writing decrees left and right, right? Like, I mean, you go to the Old Testament and you can hear that story essentially of, and read that story of essentially continuously making decrees and really pitting power or people against people, right? Like you see
mhm,
that.
uh,
Um, pitting pitting the powers of the Egyptians against the powers of these slaves, right?
yeah,
Um, so you see that, but then you also move on where freedom comes and establishment has come, and we built a nation. I'm saying we in the sense of ancient Israel. Ancient Israel has built this nation, and there is this desire, right? There's this desire by the leadership and by the people in power and by the people, even the everyday people, I would say, of we want a king like every other nation, right?
mhm,
Even though the divine, we can say God, we can say the divine spirit, we can say Yahweh. God has said, I am your God, I am your people, like you are my people, and I will walk with you, and I will do all the things that are necessary for your life.
mhm,
But they say we want a king like every other nation, right? And they end up with King Saul, and God says, I will give you a king.
mhm,
They end up with a king, and this king does all these things, right? Like that are antithetical to what their understanding of the God that they serve stands for. Um,
mhm,
but it's like a hunkering down upon this king that they've asked for. And then you go throughout the entirety of ancient Israel's history, and there are good kings, there are bad kings, but
mhm,
more than not, there are these bad kings that abuse their power. And in that, like, it isn't all, I can't say it's always on the kings, but I really believe it's on the religious leadership
Mm-hmm.
of the nation, of the nation at that time, one kingdom. It's the religious leadership that turns their back upon what the people are really seeking and what they're needing. And in an effort to really get to what they're wanting, to get to what the religious elites are wanting,
Mm-hmm.
they essentially, they sell out the people, they sell out the poor, they sell out the migrant, they sell out the women, they sell out the children, the orphans,
Mm-hmm.
the widows. And that's, I mean, and to me, that's an area that we're seeing today. Like, we're seeing that same thing play out today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We had, I mean, within these last 10, 11 days, Medicaid went down. The Medicaid portal.
Application order.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the portal went down for all 50 states, if I'm not mistaken, for about 50 states.
Mm-hmm.
Medicaid is just not for those that are poor, but there are elderly who rely on Medicare and Medicaid.
Right. Right.
So when you combine those two, you really see that, I would just say, the atrocity and the evilness of it all.
Right. Right. Pam, for all the stuff that you've gone through, and your constant fight for democracy, you constantly are speaking up. You're no stranger. You're all over the airwaves, both internationally and domestically. Have you had anybody that's in the MAGA movement question you in the sense of, well, maybe I am wrong, maybe I do want to get out of this thing? Have you had that experience?
Oh no, I'm a plant. I'm a fed. I'm a grifter. I'm everything. I never was mega. I mean, they can't believe that somebody can be pushing back like I am, just because it's the right thing to do. Because in my journey, I will not, and I just will not take any money. Even if I wrote a book, the money's going to the Capitol Police. This is my relationship and my amends with God as I understand him.
Mm-hmm.
See, when I was 5 years old, I found Jesus.
Okay.
And I love him and I follow him, his example, the best I can.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you fall down, you stand back up.
That's right.
I made a mistake.
Yeah,
I was wrong that day. And no matter how I try to make it look and become a victim, in my heart, I knew. You know, I go and meditate and sit with him sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And he's laughing at me. Oh, you were a victim, huh? You know, he laughs at me. So I have my own personal relationship with him. And I said, you know, I was wrong. I asked for forgiveness. But see, it's more than just saying words and getting on media and talking and all that. You have to live it. And so if I hadn't gotten on media and hadn't spoke out, it wouldn't have meant, it wouldn't have felt like an amends, because amends means to make it right.
Right.
You know, during the day you were mean to somebody, call them up and say, hey, I apologize. I'm so sorry. But don't just say, I'm sorry. Take them out to lunch this week. You know, you got to take that extra step if you're really following, for me, following the way I think he would have me live. And it's not easy sometimes.
I know it can't be easy because you live in the very red state of Boise, Idaho.
Oh man, they all know me too. And they're all far, far right malicious. I was, you know, with Ammon Bundy.
Yeah.
But he carried a Bible. They all carry a Bible.
See, that's what I don't understand. That's the part I don't understand. Well, and I guess that's because that's really part of that Christian nationalism, right, Kendall? That's
it is.
About. Yeah. So, but Pam, nobody has come to you about maybe changing their ways or anything? Because I would have thought that by now, some would have kind of given it some thought a bit.
We do have one. I don't know him, Jason. I'm trying to think out. It'll come to me. His name. He came out and he's not taking the pardon. But no, people just. Oh, there his name. Rattle. Yeah.
Rattle. Jason Rattle is his name.
Riddle. I'm sorry, Riddle. Riddle.
Okay. Okay.
He's come out. But no, they think I'm crazy. They think I'm having Stockholm syndrome. They think I've lost my mind. They tell me to go to therapy, you know, whatever. Because we're putting a light on their narrative. See, you have to, it's so important that what we're doing tonight, when I was in denial with my alcoholism, the people that love me the most said things to me that I did not want to hear. And I've told myself, I'm never going back and talk to those people again, especially my therapist when he said, Pam, you're not a victim of January 6th. You were a volunteer. I'm not talking to that therapist because the denial becomes defensive. They don't want to hear it. But they need to hear it. And that is love. There's the good cop and the bad cop. I'm more of the bad cop. I'm assertive and I'll tell you right to your face, dear, you're in trouble. You're going down the wrong path. What you're saying and believing in is not right. It harms people. I'm more that way, and that's why people don't talk to me sometimes. But I saying it because I love you. I care about you, and you're going the wrong way. Well, of course, they're not going to talk to me when they want to stay in denial and say that the Democrats are evil people. But anyway.
How are you managing your life now? Is your parole up yet? Or?
My probation officer got a hold of me. I'm on probation. Parole is a felony.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know that. That's okay.
I get it.
And so I'm having a fit. Okay, I've gotten a hold of the Office of the Pardon of Attorney. We text them, we called them, we mailed them a letter. I got some good news though, however, because this pardon, I haven't, and I don't want it. I haven't gotten the paperwork yet, but I gotten a hold of a senator, a Republican, because God can work through anybody.
Everybody, right?
And his office has gotten a hold of all my paperwork, and they're trying to process it through the Department of Justice. So don't be, you never know who he's going to use. I thought this is God, because a Republican, think about it.
Yeah.
And he might start a chain with other Republicans, because those are the ones that are in trouble right now that need to be turned around, that are going the wrong direction. So, we just got to trust in God, and everything's going to work out. But let's see, let's hope, because I'm not taking that part, and I don't want it. And I have the legal right to not take it.
So, Reverend Kendall, how human behavior, just like Pam does too. I think, and in fact, I said this before when you were on the show, Pam, that I think that one of the things that helped you be able to get out of this whole thing was the very fact that you are a substance abuse counselor, and you do know those 12 steps, and you are more self-aware than maybe the average person is.
Wait. However, these maggots, they carry a Bible. They know better too, and they're choosing. I understand what you're saying, and yes, because I do have to take a personal inventory. Step 10 says when you're wrong, promptly admit it. So every night I've got to look through my whole day and see if I've harmed anybody, and find, and then make amends immediately. It's a part of a way of life, and ask God for direction how to do that. Now they have the same book, the same principles I'm working. The Bible says the same thing. Take the log out of your own eye first before you start pointing fingers at other people. Didn't even Jesus, maybe you could help me with this one. Didn't he say something about that? Take your own inventory. Something, hypocrites.
You brood of vipers. Yeah. And I'm on the side of that Jesus was probably saying a couple of cuss words during that time. I know I have picked up on that language in every century. So but yeah, he did. He does. And I think that personal inventory is important. I think what we have to understand about this, and I'm going to continuously call it a moment, because moments pass. I can't give it the legitimacy of a movement,
Okay.
only because to give it the legitimacy of a movement is to say that it will be forever defining of this time and of this country. I think this country has already shown how it is and things of that nature. I think it is up to people, right? Humans, to change that narrative in every stage and in every age, right? We know the foundation and founding of this country, but there has always been people to push back against that and say, no, we're going to be more inclusive, and we are going to live up to the full. We're going to live up to the full ideals of what you wrote on paper. We are going to we are going to free slaves. We are going to give indigenous people their land. We haven't fully gotten there to give them their land, but we need to. But we are going to let women vote. We are going to ensure that civil liberties are for everyone in this land. And Pam brought up the point earlier about they carry Bibles, and that is the propaganda of really controlling the language, controlling the religion, controlling the narrative of the religion is powerful. I mean, because who goes up against their pastor on a daily basis? I mean, there are some members who do that. Yeah, we know some, but very few will challenge their pastor and say you're wrong and that you this is not it. Very few. If we're completely honest, very few people biblical literacy is at an all-time low.
Yeah, literacy overall is at a low.
Exactly. So if we know literacy overall is at a low, then we know biblical literacy is at is bottom of the totem pole. So when people are not reading their Bible, not knowing the stories, but then not taking the context with the stories, right? That scripture does not just drop out of anywhere, but scripture comes about from people putting it together in particular times in history and what was going on during those times in history and what were they trying to speak to in those times in history. Then you will have it where people can weaponize the Bible, and they will weaponize it as a tool for a particular purpose. But this is why, and I will say, because we even said this in seminary, there are people who have been ordained and people who have been licensed and people who have been trained that they will not necessarily be speakers of truth, but they will become chaplains of the state. So essentially what I'm saying is they will rather uphold the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and the culture over and above what the Spirit of God is calling them to. So prophets, they will not be a prophet. They will be somebody who uses scripture and weaponizes scripture to. Thank you, Sister Joy Presley. Yes, that was one of my aunt and one of my former members at Turner's Chapel. Taking things out of context. They will definitely do that. And that's what we see happening now. Scripture's focal point throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament and the Gospels is about the poor, the widow, the marginalized, the underserved, the underprivileged. So I just want to affirm, Pam, one of the things that you've worked in. You've been a counselor working in substance abuse. Yeah, you've been working in substance abuse. So you were with the people who the world had discarded. So I want to speak to that, right? And say that was worthwhile work. And I think even now, because you are in a position where this particular world has discarded you, right? And it's a false world. We know that it's a false world, but it has tried to discard and discredit you. Yeah, and even in saying that, like, there's an opportunity, maybe, I don't know, for as you are being vocal in that this is wrong, for them to heed that voice and say, okay, this isn't make 2 and 2 is not making 4, and I need to course correct. I think what is happening though too is that this is so deeply entrenched that it really is. I mean, with Christian nationalism, of course, but we have pastors and preachers who are upholding the MAGA theology and MAGA ideology that it's a difficult time. This is no different than slaveholder religion. Like, I just want to acknowledge this. This is no different than slaveholder religion.
Right.
What MAGA is doing is the same thing with Trump producing a Bible, is the same thing as it is the same thing as whenever slaveholders brought particular preachers to the plantation to preach to their slaves, and they ripped out the parts of liberation. They ripped out the parts of freedom. They ripped out the parts of Jesus had come to set the captive free.
Right.
This is the moment that we are living in. It is just the 21st century. And so I really hope, and I'm taking from Pam on this one, and I'm grateful to hear that the Republicans are listening, or that other parties are listening. It is my sincere hope that they would tap into the spirit behind the text and not just what the words say. Not just what the words say. There is a spirit, the general overall spirit of Christianity, overall spirit of Judaism, overall spirit of Hinduism and Buddhism and are these world religions, is love and it is justice. It is doing right by the people that we are in community with and in neighborhoods with and that we are living with. And if we hone in more on one than the other and not a balance of the two, we will miss the mark every time.
Yeah. Showy Howie is she's on fire in the state of Michigan, and she lives in a real red area of Michigan, that area where the militia are. She lives there, and she's always fighting, always. In the chat, she says, read the sermons from the Southern pastors at the Civil War era. Yeah, we want to avoid those at all times.
But they're still being preached. I mean, those sermons are still being preached. And so I want to encourage, encourage our dear sister that those sermons are still being preached in the South, the North, and the West, right? It's so wrapped up, it's so warped now, honestly. I mean, and I think the only difference now in those sermons and the sermons that the sermons of the Civil War era and the sermons that we hear today is that we have congregations now. Infrastructure is probably the most distinctive factor, in that we have infrastructures today. The lights sell people, right? The dark, the darkness of the sanctuary, or the lights in the sanctuary will have anybody come into their church. But the theology that is being preached out of these churches is as harmful as it was during the civil rights movement. If I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
No, I said I would agree.
If pastors are not talking, preachers are not talking, leadership, if they are not talking about this moment that we are living in, we are literally on the brink of democracy ending for a particular people group to have power over other people groups and the superiority. And this is not how it is to be. It is not how it's to be. And our founders were not Christian. Our founders, the founding of this country they were not Christian by any stretch of the imagination. They were deists. Some were atheists. Some were, some were of other religions. Some practiced some days and didn't practice on other days. What they did think, though, what they did hold was that liberty and freedom and the right to practice religion were to be ours. Were to be ours. And not be controlled by the state. And right now what we're seeing is a conflation of the state with the church. And the two have partnered against the people. And I think that's what that is the harm in all of this. The church and the state have partnered against the people.
I want to say right now that one of the things about my show is that we have active participation with people in the chat. And unfortunately, we have someone that's being a little bit of a troll in the chat right now. So we'll just keep moving on because and you know what? I know that Pam, that's part of her life, but she bravely presses on anyway, right?
Well, they attacked, I call him Yeshua, told him he wasn't doing it right too, you know? So, yeah.
Rodney Mills says anyone can carry a Bible, but the interpretation of what's being stated has a certain misinterpretation to give a group of people, I think he meant, to understand it outside of what's real.
That's my dad.
Oh. Okay.
Can I just share something? What he just
absolutely.
Yeah, I'd heard from one of our founding fathers too, and I'm not going to say it exactly how I read it, but he said, if your religion and my religion or your religion's rules interfere with mine, we're going to have a war. And that's why we got freedom of religion, to believe or not to believe in God. And I love that we're free. However, you know, we all know right from wrong, you know, and what they've turned this into is that what's evil is good. What is that, Isaiah? And what is good is evil. So they're twisting everything around. But I just wanted to, remind your audience that that's why the Constitution, I believe, was a gift from God. And I don't know if it was divinely inspired or not, but it works. It works for all people. And that's, I feel like, I don't think it's going anywhere. I don't.
And we have to understand, it was a radical document for the times. Like it was, I don't think we can deny that the Declaration of Independence, when England is colonizing everybody, and the Constitution to set up a law where at a particular time certain people were given land. But I think what the mistake that was made was that they put that in paper, and when they put it on paper, we the people took that to mean literally we the people. And there has always been an element within American history and with American life that has tried to exclude the people from the fruits of what the Constitution provides.
But I really believe in we the people myself. I use that a lot on social media. Like it is we the people. That's how I'm taking it. Even though back when it was written, it meant for just wealthy white male landowners.
But this is where we the people come in and say, no, we the people are included in that.
Right.
We the women, we the Black people, we the Asian people, we the Hispanic, we the indigenous, we the LGBTQIA. We are included in that we the people because of the simple fact that we are people. We are humans. And we are therefore deserving of the rights, the liberties, and the fruits that come from our toil.
All right. I like this, what Kimby says the modern church, in order to get folks in the pews, have to be entertaining. The word of God is not the center of why folks come. And that is the absolute truth. And that's why I really feel
That's my aunt. I'm sorry. That's
that's why we're in such the trouble that we're in, like not knowing right from wrong, or having all of these nuances of what is right and what's wrong, whatever. Well, you can do a little bit, that's okay, that's and it's and so what if I don't admit it, if I don't take accountability? That shows I'm strong, I'm tough, or whatever. And that's not how a few generations ago, when I was younger, that's not how I grew up. You know what I'm saying? And so, and when I grew up too, church was not considered entertaining. I mean, an entertainment center, right? I mean,
exactly. It was a thing of, if you didn't, but this gets at, we live in such a consumer compromised culture now, that if it does not fit me, I will no longer be a part of it. Or if it does not fit me, I will no longer, no matter how good it is for me, right? No matter how morally forming it might be for me, if it does not serve my creaturely needs to maybe be energized, to maybe be to be excited, right? If it does not do that, then it's an option. It's not a guarantee, and it's not a definite. Whereas, like you're saying, Pam, during your time, even when it felt uncomfortable, even when it was let's say like this, when it was boring, when it was dry, I think yeah, when it was real dry, because I grew up AME back in the day when that was dry. When it was that, there was still something that could be received as it relates to moral formation, character building, as it related to how to deal with neighbors and how to deal with people. And I just think that we've gotten so, unfortunately, we have become so consumer oriented, in the sense of, if it does not benefit the consumer, or if the consumer says it does not benefit them, then we want no parts of it. And right now, if we tie this to the conversation today, racism benefits people, sexism benefits people, excluding you benefits people, because it kind of helps them try to build their case, right? In all of these things that they're trying to do. It helps build that. But I think what we have to understand is that, from a faith perspective, and even from a civic perspective, if we are wanting this real democracy, it is not going to be acquiescing to something that we know is for our detriment and not for our good.
Right. Absolutely not. Pam, can you relate to this? Showy Howie says, in my neighborhood, she's in the state of Michigan, like I said, the We the People flag is a KKK symbol. The decal on the truck says, paint the forest red. Be careful. I don't understand the paint the forest red connotation. Do you understand that?
Is that blood?
Oh,
I don't know. That's what.
Maybe that's what she means. Oh God. I hope not.
I don't even want to pray for those people. I'm sorry. I get this anger. It's so disgusting.
And I think that's perfectly fine. I think we're at a time now where we cannot, we offer these whenever there are school shootings, thoughts and prayers. We can do something about that, right?
Yes, but
with this moment of re-electing Donald Trump, we could have done something about that. I mean, people could have done something, and so we cannot. And so I agree with you, Pam. Like, we can, like, there's a section within the Psalms. People don't like to go there, but there's a section within the Psalms where basically ancient Israel is pushing back on these really nice, neat, tidy prayers. Like, it's not a Psalm 23 prayer. It's not a like, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. It's not a Psalm 27, the Lord is my light and my salvation. But they are prayers of anger. They are prayers of, God, I am tired. I am sick and tired. And essentially, I need you to step in and do what only you can do. Because if I do it, if I do it, it is illegal. It will have me in jail and all those things. But they're called a particular prayer. But I'm gonna leave that alone because I still do want to go to work tomorrow. But I say all that to say we are at a moment. To your point, we're at a moment we praying that God has shown us what the reality is. God, the divine has shown us what is real, and to offer up something. Bishop Bud preached a wonderful sermon.
Yes, she did.
A phenomenal sermon.
About that last week. Yeah.
Preached a phenomenal sermon. And instead of saying I just don't agree with the sermon, legislation has been put in the House. A House resolution was placed a couple of days ago, basically to go down in record that her words were an act of political activism. If I'm not mistaken.
Are you serious?
So serious. So it's on Congress.gov. Her sermon was listed as an act of political activism. And so when I think we understand that we're not we have been called to be salt and light in this world, and also that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual wickedness in high places. The tools that we use are going to be different, and they have to be different. Part of that is in our prayers, but it is not in our prayers being the nice, fluffy. That's not in that. It's not going to be in that. It's going to be in the raw and the real prayers.
Yeah. Well, in Germany, you have that flag. It's illegal. You're going to go to jail. And you know what? I've watched what people have done in America. Our history, pushing back on fascism. It's there. I don't know what's happening right now, but I want to tell you, you better wake up. I feel like slapping you a little bit. Get up, stand up for what's right. Get the mama bears out there. It's not okay to have that flag. Get 100 people around. I don't know. But,
right.
I don't know. I can't express enough that is more than talk. You got to get into action. Peaceful. We got the beautiful people in our past. Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks. All she did was the right thing. Now, it would be if that flag was in my neighborhood, watch out. I mean, I would do the right thing. And I'd hold a flag and say, shame on you, take that flag down. But a lot of people aren't like me. I'm a little nuts. But
I don't know how
I don't like that stuff. And you're going to hear from me that I don't like it.
With
you may keep it up there, but you're going to hear me coming over there every day saying, take that flag down. It's disgustful. That's just me. But I could get shot too. So I don't know. I don't really care at my age. You get a little more brave. I'm sorry.
You must. I'm going to share something that's kind of that's really something real positive that one of the schools did to I don't know what city this was in, to show international awareness of their school. And it just shows the great diversity in our schools and everything. And they're just trying to unwind everything. I'm going to show you this. Let's see. Okay. All right. Uh-oh. Now don't tell me it's not gonna act right. It's not gonna act right. Oh shucks. Let's see if this one. Now this is some okay. So I'll go back to that. I don't know what happened to the fun, happy thing that I had. It didn't want to play for me, but at any rate, that was a guide to explaining the actual background of MAGA and how really all of this rolling back of wanting to be involved with Greenland and Panama Canal and its relationship to Russia, how he says that a lot of this thing is because, and it came out in his first, when he was first in office, about how Russia, Vladimir had a relationship with him and that they had a financial relationship and that he had bailed them out. And his son Eric even slipped and said something about that, with some of their golf courses and stuff. So it's interesting. So he's compromised. And it's no different than when, if you're in a lot of debt and they do credit checks on you before you get a job, a certain type of job that they don't want you because you're compromised. You might steal, you might embezzle money or whatever. It's the same, it's no different. So, anyways, I hate I couldn't show you that that video, but wanted to. But it was beautiful. It was a bunch of school kids, and they were from all over the country within this one school. Some were from Ukraine. Some were from some countries. One of them, two of them, I didn't know what the word were. I wasn't familiar. The Haiti and the Dominican Republic and just all over. It was really phenomenal. And the kids wore their native clothing, and it was like an all nations day that they gave to the schools. But now they don't want anything related to any study. Even if you've even gone to any work on equity, diversity, equity, inclusion, they're calling you out in the Department of Education. And a lot of those people went to those classes when Trump was in office the first time under Pam DeVos over the education. So it's really crazy. Yeah. Okay. All right. Somebody, I don't know who people are. We have more trolls.
They love me.
Yeah. Yeah, but anyways, let's see here. No hate on my 2-car garage door. Oh, somebody put that on your 2-car garage door? Shall we? Okay. All right. Yes, Trump is beholden to Putin because he bailed him out financially. Yes, he did. That's a fact. That is a fact. That is a fact. Yeah. So listen, guys, what's next for you, Pam? What you've been on every show imaginable. You've been international. You've been on all the major networks. What are you up to now? Are you writing a book? Are you doing anything? Got any special projects in the works?
Well, there are a few things. Until it's a little more closer, I won't speak about it. But again, you need to know that it's not about making any money. I would like to do that, an offer for a documentary and a book, but that money's going to the Capitol Police. It's going there. I couldn't live with myself for making any money for speaking out and doing the truth. And that's what's a lot of people are having a hard time wrapping that around their head. It would just take everything that I've been trying to do, I think, away. Because that's why I'm speaking out and hoping that people will let their voice be heard. What you have to share is so important. And it's hard. I know it's very difficult because they accuse you of everything. But no, my hope is just like I already spoke to one Democrat party, is just to talk to the Democrat Party. Maybe being invited if I could to speak to them. That's all. Just little things. I'm 71. I'd like to put January 6th behind me, but see, my men's, I still haven't. Now there was, I got an email that a congressperson would like to invite me to read my letter to Congress. So let's see. Everything's up in the air, and
administration,
and meet a Capitol Police officer, at least one, and give him a hug and tell him I'm so sorry that I was there that day.
Well, it was one. They helped you get up.
Yeah, but I say I owe them. I should, they haven't put the plaque up. I don't know if you guys know this. It's been approved. But if the nation loved this Capitol Police so much, they would be really screaming and pushing to get that plaque inside the Capitol up. It's a plaque for them, the Capitol Police that day, and all the hell they went through. That's the least we could be doing for them. But no, nobody calls. I'm sorry, maybe there's a few. But do I need to go there and just put it up myself? Because I could.
When was it?
I feel like doing it.
When was it finished during the Biden administration? Was it done?
I don't know exactly, but it's been approved to be put up, but they won't put it up. It's just a little nail. It's been approved, but they won't. Of course, they don't want Trump walking by it.
He's not going to put it up. That's not going to happen.
Well, we're going to put it up.
Yeah, it won't. It won't.
Quit making him the king that he can do whatever he wants. No, he can't. We, the people, can do it. I mean, you get enough of us. We can stand out there saying, you're going to put that plaque up.
We could, but I'm waiting for these Dems to get on board and start, fighting, more regularly and loudly. Now that they have gotten, one thing I'm happy about, they got David Hogg as the vice chair of the party, which is great because it's a Gen Z. We've got to make generational change, and that's speaking against myself, but I don't care. I mean, you need to, to be a good leader, you need to be grooming others under you to go ahead and take over. It doesn't do any good if you're taking up all of the energy, all of the power to yourself and not grooming somebody else to come up behind you to teach them where to raise money and who your contacts and connections are. If you've been in Congress for 1,000 years, that's the thing that just drives me nuts about that whole thing. We've got to have generational change, and I think they got it right on David Hogg. I don't know he sounded good. I just heard him speak. I don't know who he is.
A congressman said if 300 people are out there on the steps, I don't pay attention. But he did say when there's 3,000. So we got to make those calls to our local representatives. It's so important. It only takes 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Stand up and get that mama bear and papa bear. You remember Yeshua in the temple, that part where he turns around and calls him hypocrite, and he had that powerful strength of conviction. He had that, don't mess with me, you hypocrites. We got to get that back, that energy that happened with Martin Luther King. People have got to realize it's not hopeless. It's not over. If I decide that Trump is really in charge, what am I doing? That Trump has all the power. I'm taking that away from God, saying that God doesn't. Oh no, really? No. Just watch. People, they will wake up.
And that's why I was to your point, Pam. That's why I was saying I don't think we can keep calling this a movement. We've got to call it a moment, because it is not going to be a defining part. It is who we are right now, and it is an iteration of who we've been.
Mm-hmm.
But to give it movement gives it legitimacy. And to Pam's point, we can't take God's power away from God. I'm reminded of the sermon preached this morning. Pastor Reverend Bill Lamar is my pastor at Metropolitan AME Church. Shout out to him for what he did this morning in reminding us that the sun doesn't like the sun. He was basically saying that the sun doesn't rush to get anywhere.
No.
The sun is the sun, and the sun rises every morning and it sets every evening. And that you cannot dispute the power of the sun. And so I would just say that same thing. We cannot dispute the power of God in a time like this. We can't do that, and we cannot give something legitimacy that has no legitimacy at all. And not give someone power just because they write some executive orders and because they tweet random stuff at
night, and we wake up in the morning and all hell's broke loose.
Exactly. We cannot, like, yes, it is going to be tough, but this is also where we have to realize that we, as I mentioned earlier, where we need each other. We've got to get back to community things and community living, in the sense of I can't do this without you, and I might not have it for $8 eggs this week, but if you've got 2 eggs, if you got a carton of eggs, let me get 2 of those, right? Stuff like that, and the sugar and the flour, all of that stuff. We've got to get back to that and realizing that we, the people, are going to be the ones that take care of ourselves and the ones that get us out of this mess.
Yeah. Right. That's right. That's right. Well, listen, we have run our time. I am so appreciative of both of you. Pam, you were quieter today. I think you have just talked. You have been on so many shows. You are just wore. You told me when you came you were tired.
Yeah.
And that's fair. That's fair. I understand. Kendall, I really appreciate you so much. More than you know. More than you know. And I'm very, very thankful that you were able to come.
Thank you for having me. It's been an honor to be here and to meet you, Pam, and to be back in presence with you, Pam. Greatly appreciative of it all.
All right. So Zach has one more thing. Black people say God is still in control, and we have faced difficult times before, but there was a lot of pain during Jim Crow. Yes, but we're gonna.
And to that point, there was a lot of pain, a lot of sorrow, a lot of lives lost in Jim Crow. But there was a joy. There was a joy in the realization that we had the power to take back our authority, to take back our power. And I go to that kind of Negro spiritual that says, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me, and the world can't take it away.
That's right. That's right.
The American government did not give us joy. The MAGA does not give us joy. It didn't give it to us, so it can't take it away from us. And so this joy has to be cultivated, though. It has to be cultivated. And I think conversations like this help cultivate that joy, that all is not lost.
That's right. All is not lost, and we will not lose our joy. And that's something that Kamala Harris used to say all the time. All the time. I miss hearing her, because I would feel better listening to her. But anyways, good night, everyone. Let's wave, everybody. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pam.
Subscriber. All right. Good night, everyone.